This is Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars with Stephen Fennick and Trevor Long. Thanks to NRMA Insurance and Uniden.
Welcome to Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars. Trevor Long, Stephen Fennick, and we do it thanks to the great people. Proudly brought to you this show by NRMA Insurance, helping over 3 million people across Australia protect the things they care about, and Uniden Smart Dashcams, Australia's best dashcam according to CanStar Blue. They scored a 5-star rating in all categories: value for money, video quality, design, memory, storage capacity, user friendliness, and overall satisfaction. So get yourself a Uniden dashcam, and we thank both Uniden and NRMA Insurance for helping us make the show happen. Stephen.
G'day, Trevor.
You are a long-time EV owner, having owned both a Tesla Model S and now Mercedes EQE.
Yes, so I'm up to my second EV now, and yeah, I got to say, it's been nearly 6 years since I've got into my first EV. I had driven some before I bought my own, as did you.
Yep.
But I think, mate, this is the way forward for us. I'm never going to drive a petrol car ever again, so I think this is great, very topical podcast for people who are maybe in the same boat. They're thinking, maybe do we buy our first EV or buy your second EV? You might be at that stage where you're considering it, so you're at the right place now to hear about all the latest news and all this information. We can help you with making that decision.
Like Stephen said, I've been driving electric cars since the first Tesla arrived in Australia in, what did we do? We agreed a couple of weeks ago. It was 2014.
Yeah.
I've driven probably every model that's been released in Australia, and I now own the Cupra Born, so I'm all in. I've got the charger, getting the solar panels. It's all happening at my house as well. So we don't want to profess to be the only experts or that we know everything, but we want to share our ownership experience as well as the experience of driving them. Also, because we'll get to review plenty of cars, we'll give you our experiences in the cars that you might look to buy, and we're keen to hear from you as well. If you're an EV owner and you want to share your experience, we've got a bunch of people who've already reached out. We'll grab some people, get them on the show, and we'll have a phone conversation about exactly their thoughts and views on owning an EV, because I think those are valuable learnings.
Absolutely, yeah. I found that when I was speaking to other owners, and even myself now as an owner, where other people are asking me the questions, they want to know my experience. They all ask sort of the same sort of questions about the range and where do you charge it, and have you ever run out of battery and all these sorts of things. So I think having all this information, not just from us, but from other owners that are just into a new car, maybe they've been driving it for a couple of years, and all types of cars too, not just the top of the line expensive luxury cars, but all models of cars, from the most affordable all the way through to the most expensive.
Well, let's kick it off with the EV news of the week. Now, Stephen, I would argue, and we've driven the Polestar 2 very recently. The Polestar's selling very well in Australia.
Yes.
Certainly not second to Tesla, because BYD would take that title. But for a luxury car from the Volvo group of companies, sister company to Volvo, it's kicked off very well in Australia.
It's striking. The Polestar, when it first came out, couple of years ago now.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that I had a car to drive a few months before the official launch, and I literally had people stopping me in the street to say, what is that?
Well, because I think there's something about it. Forget its electric nature. It's actually a really well-designed car, so it's got that Volvo design studio heritage
sort of look to it,
And I also think some of the reason for their success is the design.
Absolutely.
It's not as jarring or as futuristic perhaps as a Tesla, and that's why I'm really excited about the Polestar 4.
Yeah.
Now, we've just got news in the last week that the Polestar 4, while we've known about the car, the Polestar 4, I saw it at CES in Las Vegas in January, and the Polestar 3. The Polestar 4 weirdly sits in between the 2 and the 3 on both price and size.
Yeah.
The 3 is more of an SUV. The 2 is very much a sedan. This is more a sporty, stylish coupe. And it is. Yeah. It's a good looking car.
So how they described it, coupe, but the space of an SUV. You got to remember, SUV is a very popular type of car in Australia. So it's I think they're trying to take the best of both worlds here, for that, the design, and also for that the sheer space inside. And I've got to say, the design, it looks a cracker.
And one of the things they've done, when you see the Polestar 4 in the flesh, let alone the photos that you can find at Stephen's website, techguide.com.au, and mine, EFTM.com, There's something strategic they've done with the back seat, which is it's lifted a bit, right? Which gives you that SUV feeling, which I think probably also adds space for batteries and things, but ignore that for the moment. But when you lift the rear seat, you create a problem for the driver. They can't see out the back window. Well, no problem here. There is no back window. Okay, the Polestar 4 has no rear window, which means that you only have the option of a digital rear view mirror, which is not uncommon in modern luxury cars. I've driven many a car with a digital rear view mirror.
A lot of digital side mirrors too, I've seen.
Takes a lot to get used to, though, I will be honest with you folks. But the thing is, this is wild to me because they got rid of the glass at the back, but it's still got glass all the way on the roof. So nothing to stop the beautiful sun and the view coming in, but they've done this rear part so that they can essentially package the car to give it that coupe look, the SUV size or space.
Gives it a good, nice stance as well.
Yeah.
But I think having the elevated back seat too just makes use of the easier for the passengers to look over the front passengers' heads and the driver's head to see the view.
There'd be no one that sees this car and describes it as an SUV, but I think Polestar wants you to believe that it has the interior feeling of, say, Model Y. Let's be real. Model Y is the number one selling electric car in Australia. It is probably one of the number one selling small SUVs in Australia, but it's really just about space. It's not about going off-road and all that kind of stuff. This thing is a sleek coupe design. It's a 4-door, so it's not two-door coupe. It's a 4-door. It's about the length of a Polestar 2, so it's got the length. It doesn't have a short hatchback.
Nearly 5 meters long, 4.84 meters long. So it's not small,
but it has the same as the Polestar 2. It is a hatchback in a sense. I hate using the word hatchback in this situation because I think of a Ford Laser or a V-Dub Golf as a hatchback, But this has a boot, but the whole rear, what would be a window, comes up and gives you the boot as well. I think now this thing, as I said, is priced above the Polestar 2, so more expensive than a Polestar 2, but it is cheaper than what will be the Polestar 3 when it comes. It's the reason for this news is we've known about this car, but it's now available to order by Australians.
Delivery by when?
Deliveries will start, they hope, in August.
So
now, it's
only
weird
around the
because
corner.
they're already making it and delivering it in China, but production for Europe and Australia will be in August. $81,500 for the single motor long range. So that's going to give you the most range from the single motor, whereas there's also a dual motor which will give you slightly less range and more performance if that's what you want, and that'll be $93,000.
Performance it can 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds.
Yeah.
Is that something? Just a question without notice. Is that something you reckon drivers are gonna? Is that a factor in their decision? Like, are there people who care that you can go 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds? I think there might be a sector of the
definitely.
I know a lot of Tesla drivers. I know my Model S could go 0 to 100 in like ridiculously short time.
You do is tell your mates about it, and you give them one demonstration of it, and then it plays
and that's it.
Zero role in the life of the car. Now, I don't think people buy cars with 0 to 100 in mind unless they're thinking about doing track days and drag days.
Because they tend to be more expensive, of course, cars that with that type of performance. So that's another box to tick if you're looking at a car.
I think what really matters in the 0 to 100 space is the electric is always better than petrol or diesel. And no matter what, mate, I've driven, even, we'll talk about the MG4 later, even that has punch off the line.
Yes, it does.
When you compare it to a similarly priced or sized petrol car, right? So I think that what you're going to get, Polestar, the thing that I loved most about the Polestar 2 is a fit and finish interior. It's really high quality. It's a great ride, like a really good drive. I think a better drive than a Tesla. And I think the Polestar 4 could well be a standout at that price point.
And just to I think you mentioned the interior, it does have that sort of nice luxury feel, and it's not like and look, the Tesla, a lot of people, it's either a love or hate thing with the Tesla. the minimal sort of less is more approach that Tesla has. I don't think, not everyone's a fan. So others think it's the best thing in the world. I do like the fact that the Polestar does give you a little bit more than that. What about battery? There's the 100 kilowatt hour battery fitted for both long range versions. Long range, we're talking up to 580 kilometre range.
For the single motor,
that's pretty
580
good.
is
really
unbelievable.
Good. That's really good.
And just as a sign of how far we've come, I got this question quickly on the radio recently about someone was complaining about their Mini. as in the BMW Mini car, Mini Cooper electric. And they were like, oh, I'm an Uber driver or something, and I'm only getting 200 k's range. Well, it only had 230 k's range when it was released 4 years ago. So I don't know what you're expecting, but that's how far we've come. You know, we are now at a point where cars are easily getting close to the 600k mark, and it's only going to get better. 610,
they're saying, with the other version of the car as well. And that's a factor. I think that's one of the things that people look for. Funny enough, when you were buying a petrol car, you never asked, well, how far can it go on a full tank? Ever. Because of course, there's petrol stations everywhere. People are now concerned about the range of EVs because they know that if in a situation where they need to push through to the next town, they need to know that they've got the range. Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so the Polestar 4 is on sale now in Australia. If you've got 80 odd grand and you want a really nice looking EV, then that's a great one to consider. Yeah, the 15.4 inch screen too. Really love that as well. In other news, we've seen there's a new Tesla on the horizon. There was some news out of Reuters to talk about the Project Redwood. Right. And what they're talking about here, they're talking about a cheaper Tesla. So we're talking the Model 2, which was reportedly going to go into production in 2025. So you can just imagine the market now. This is Tesla's move to ward off BYD, all those cheaper brands that are sort of eating into their market share. Because at the moment, I think Tesla's still considered a more premium car, where they're more expensive than a lot of other models. And so I think this is Tesla's reply to the uprising of BYD and all these other brands. Like BYD has the Dolphin, the 803, the Seal, where they're all, and especially the Seal. The Seal, I think, was priced to undercut the Model 3. Oh, mate, it's sharp. It's the same category as the Model 3. By the way, a lot of people really love the look of the Seal now. It's out on the road. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a few, and it is an eye catcher. It is a really nice looking car. And I know a couple of people that have bought it. Yeah, they're behind the wheel. So Tesla's response to that is going to the Model 2. The Project Redwood is sort of the name for the team name for it, but it's likely to be launched as the Model 2 and not till 2025. So another year before we see this cheaper Tesla on the road. Yeah. I don't want to be that guy, but you know what that really means? 2027, 28. Oh, okay. So you're thinking, the Cybertruck just rolled off the production line in limited quantity, and we were in Korea in 2018 or 2019, one of those. Yes. So that took 5 or 6 years to go from concept, project to delivery. Okay. Mate. And also the other thing, I'm not trying to be negative off the bat, but I do have my concerns about the Tesla organization in many ways of the way they announce things. Yeah. The Model 3 was meant to be far cheaper than it is. Yeah. You know, I put my name down for a Model 3. I paid money to put my name down for a Model 3 thinking that it would be a low $50,000 car. Yes. It never was. Never, ever was. So they're a little bit off the mark sometimes when making promises. So I would caution that. We do know that the Model 3 is here already. We're seeing the new shape Model 3 on the road. Have you seen a few of them already? Yeah. So we know where that sits. And so before, when you were talking about the pricing, there was nothing to compare it to. No, that's true. So now we know where the Model 3 is going to sit. So this can only sit underneath that. Yeah, I know, how much cheaper, how aggressive they can get with pricing. But to be aggressive, you want to be at the $40,000 to $45,000 mark, whereas I think a Model 2 might be at $45,000 to $55,000, which is still going to sell big numbers. Absolutely. Let's be real. They've got the brand. Tesla has the brand. Brand power. Yeah, look at how many they're selling. I'm being a narc because look at how many they're selling, right? At $60,000 to $80,000, $90,000 for a Model Y. Everywhere you look is a Model 3 or a Model Y. Yeah, it's changing though. Very popular. There's a lot of cars on the road now. I'm seeing more Polestars. Yeah. I'm seeing more BYDs too. Yeah. BYD, mate, wow. I'm blown away by how many Seals I've seen lately. And the Auto 3 is just going great guns. And again, I don't want to be classist, but also I think the further you get out of the inner city, I think there's more BYDs because there's more people who are just looking for value as opposed to the brand. Yeah, true. And I think and this is good. This is good for everyone because it does create competition. Oh, 100%. It creates the opportunity for customers to think, okay, 6 years ago when I bought my Tesla, there was only the
was
Model S.
basically the only choice.
There was that or nothing.
Yeah.
So now it's a completely different story. So much choice now from all price ranges.
Just to put in perspective the choice, we have 2 cars a week,
Yes.
electric cars a week booked for months ahead. There are that many cars on the road for us to choose from and for you to choose from, and not just individual cars, but the makes and models within them, the different variants. So lots of big stuff coming. And I think big news from Tesla and Polestar is a great way to kick off the first episode of Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars. All right, Stephen, we want to spend a bit of time as regular as we can informing, educating and myth-busting, whatever we can with regards to EVs, because often these will be great water cooler conversations for you as well, because a lot of people are doubters just out of the gate.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few of those over the years. Yeah.
So let's talk today about what to think about with when you're thinking about buying an EV. Forget the cars.
Yeah.
What to think about with regards to charging, right?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk firstly about where you live, because it stuck with me solidly. I was in Stockholm, I think it was, for the launch of the Mercedes-Benz EQS, the first ever, EQC, first ever Mercedes-Benz electric car. It was unbelievable. It was a big deal for them. And I remember them, big presentation, all that kind of glossy stuff. But I remember them talking about, investing in a charging network, because at the time it was all about Tesla's charging network.
Yeah.
And then talking about how their data was, and the broad industry data was, that 96% of charging happens at home.
Yeah.
And here's the first thing I say to people when it comes to charging. They go, I don't know how to do this. I say, listen, when was the last time you forgot to charge your iPhone or your Samsung?
Yeah.
That's the way you need to think about your electric car. When you get home, you plug it in.
Yeah.
So the great thing is that doesn't even require you to spend money at home. Most electric cars come with. If they don't, it's a couple of $100 for what they often refer to as a granny charger, which is a trickle charger. You plug it into a normal power point, and it converts itself into the Type 2, plug it into your car, and it might take 2 days to charge full, but you only drove 50 Ks today.
Yeah.
So by the time you wake up in the morning, it's back to where it was.
I think the thinking has to go back to it's not like every time when you were driving your petrol car, whenever you drove past a petrol station, you never thought, oh, I better fill up again.
That's right.
Because you had a full tank.
Yeah.
So I think similar thinking has to go towards an EV. But my similar to you, I tell people, consider where you can charge it. If you want to do the granny charging, the trickle charging.
Because the next step up from that is installing a charger at home. We both did that recently.
Yeah, I did that. I went with my Tesla. They were, at the time, they gave you a charger with the car. So I had a Tesla charger. I put that up on the wall, got my electrician friend to install it, and I had charging in my driveway. So I often tell people, if you're considering an EV, consider where you can charge it. Home is the best place to charge.
No doubt. And that's where the majority of your charging will be.
Where you work, maybe there might be a charger in your facility, in your building, in your factory, wherever you happen to work.
Some workplaces will incentivize that. In fact, you might get a solid parking spot out of it.
That might work too. Also, you might shop in a centre that has a lot of chargers. Mm-hmm. So I think consider where you drive often. And that's probably, I think, a good rule of thumb to think, okay, well, it's never going to be an issue for me to charge.
That's right, yeah. I think that when you understand it's the same as we've talked about when you buy a mobile phone and you're changing networks. Yeah. I remember Vodafone, and they still do, I think, have this network guarantee thing where they say to you, well, you're switching to our network, where do you live? Yep. Where do you work? And they look it up on the map and say, well, good coverage,
that's
it'll be fine, kind of thing.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
so think about the same thing. Yeah. Where do you go often? What's the average trip you make? Because it's only, and we're going to talk in a minute about planning a trip, it's only for most people when you're doing something out of the ordinary, which is going for a drive to visit a relative in a distant place or whatever. That
on a holiday.
It's not a weekly thing for you. It's those weekly things that matter. And remember this, you're plugging it in, even if it's not every night, you plug it in every second or third day. Yeah. You're not required to charge your car to 100%. You're not required to let it go down to zero. You're not required to have any certain amount. It's just as long as you've got enough for the day. Yeah. It's just a different mindset because, as you said earlier, we don't look at petrol cars as having a certain amount of range left. No. We just think it's near empty and time to charge. That is the thing to get out of your mind.
But I think there might be some factors that might play against you. There might be, you might live in an apartment.
Spot on,
So
yeah.
if you live in an apartment, you think, well, I've got a parking spot, but there's nowhere to charge my car. Do you need to talk to the Strata? Has Strata already assigned a charging spot for the building?
Have Strata already said it's a big no-no in this building?
Yes.
Because, there's, and we'll talk about this in the future, the risks of fire and things like that. There are some Stratas that through fear and or research have decided they're not going to allow that in the building. So if you don't have off-street parking, what do you do?
Exactly.
Plenty of people that live in
point.
inner city areas, they're all relying on plenty of spots around and they're all parking on the street. But what do I do? So that's where, and this will evolve very quickly over the next 2 years because governments are investing in this. Certainly the New South Wales government has a large investment program that is targeting inner city areas.
Yeah, I think they're saying that there'll be charges within 5 kilometres of each other and within 100 kilometres of each other in rural areas.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the New South Wales government directive there. But other states are taking up the same plans as well. And like I said before, compared to 6 years ago, it's a lot different. There were a lot more places to charge today than there were back when I first got mine. But Tesla had their supercharger network, which is now open to other brands of cars. It was exclusively just to Tesla. But now in like on those long trips, the superchargers in the country, most of those are
Some
available
are opening
to,
up. Yeah, it's happening slowly, but they're getting there.
Yeah.
And look, so for us, I think one of the key points before you bite the bullet on the EV is how am I going to charge it? Because the last thing you want to do is be the guy on social media who's running a power cord across the footpath, okay? Don't be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
That's critical.
Yeah.
So then let's move on to one of the other really critical things about the EV, which goes to what we just talked about, which is those extraordinary trips, those holidays, those travel times, right? So planning a trip. Now, I will give the most credit in the world to Tesla's integration, Apple style. We make the hardware, we make the software.
Yes.
Tesla do it all from the ground up. And so from the get-go, in 2014, and I remember driving from Brisbane to Adelaide in a Tesla Model X, it would probably be 2017 or so, and you could plot the trip and it would tell you where to stop, how long to stop for, and what your state of charge would be when you stopped. That's brilliant, but it doesn't exist in most electric cars. Now,
some, not all.
Some will tell you, some will just have a GPS system, the normal maps, where instead of just having petrol station as an option, you can find charging stations. Some, I remember the Hyundai Ioniq, which we broke down on the way to Bathurst in, had a map and it had like a circle that was drawn, like it had your and then a green circle as to where you could go. Like just a circle on a map.
So a range circle.
Just a range circle, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't have the planning around that. So my advice is every charging network, and it's the rethink of your mind. There's BP, Shell, all these petrol companies. When you talk electric, there's the same. You got EV, you got ChargeFox, you got Tesla, you got all these different networks, BP, Ampol. They're all going to have charging apps and charging stations. You really need, my advice is to use a thing called PlugShare. It's a brilliant website.
Yep.
Also has an app.
App's great.
Which has CarPlay integration. It's actually quite simple. It's not the best looking interface. It's nothing amazing to look at. But if you say, I'm going from here to here, it'll show you everything from where the charging stations are, but also it'll show elevation. So it'll show you how with uphill and downhill. And you can then save that trip, bring it up in your phone, open that up in the CarPlay app, and then launch it into your mapping system off you go.
I have been using that app for quite a while, and it does tell you things like the number of charges at the particular place. There might be 2, 4.
Yes.
It'll tell you also, it'll direct you how to get there. Often the users leave photos so you can see what it looks like. That helps you. Like trying to find a new charger, especially in a shopping centre, it's a bit hard. So it tells you about that. It also, I think the app even tell you if the ports are occupied as well.
It doesn't tell you if they're occupied, but what happens is, what I do is I say I'm going to here and I'm going to use this charger and that charger. And then I open up the app of those networks, which nearly always
and they will tell you
that. Now, if you go to one that is either so old or whatever reason it doesn't have that availability thing, here's the other great thing about PlugShare. Because of the community of users, it's not everyone, but lots of people. So on my way to Mum's most recently, the Scone charger was inoperable.
Right.
It said someone had left a review saying not working. So
so
I
you
knew
could read that.
I knew to expect that it wouldn't be working. I still stopped and checked and left my own review to say it's still not working, so the next person would know.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's
helping each other out, isn't it?
That's an important part of the community. And it goes back to what we've talked about before, and we'll talk about again, is the etiquette, which is it allows you then to say, I'm going to be gone soon and stuff like that. So planning a road trip, not as easy as it is in a petrol car. Hand on heart, I get it, because you're not just saying I'm going from here to here and we got to stop for lunch. You do need a bit more planning, but I think it makes the road trip a little bit more interesting and enjoyable at times. You can make fun with it with your family, make a game of it.
And often when it's time to charge, it's probably time to have a break anyway. So grab a coffee, grab some lunch, and then by the time you've had your feed, you're ready to go.
We should do a really long road trip one day.
Bring it on, mate.
And because the last time I did an EV road trip was I drove the Porsche Taycan from Melbourne to Sydney.
Ooh.
Seriously, I needed to stop more than it did. Like I'm that old that I can't endure 3 hours on the road.
Had to go to the bathroom, did you?
No, just to get tired, then to stretch the legs. Got to get out.
You could share the driving, mate.
I don't know that I want to be trapped in a car with you for 10 hours. I was thinking about just walkie-talkies, maybe.
Oh, you mean separate cars? Yes. Oh, okay, like we did before. Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that one. I thought we were pilot, co-pilot and swap. But no, I hear you now.
We'll do two different cars.
I agree. We'll do two different cars for sure. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's official. The Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars road trip.
It's coming.
We'll be separate cars, and that's best for our friendship more than anything else.
Exactly right.
If you've got thoughts on the things you want to hear from us in terms of the things that we might be able to help you understand, if you are an owner and you've got input on these things, we absolutely want to hear from you. So get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us very easily via each of our respective websites: techguide.com.au for Stephen, efgm.com for me, and send us an email. We'll put together the list, and we're going to have drivers and owners on very soon, so that we can just have 5 minutes, 5 minutes of your time.
You
to
can
understand,
be on the show. Yeah,
to understand what you love about your EV and what you hate, because I think it's good to share with people the ups and the downs of EV
transparency,
ownership.
Full transparency here. We want to hear from you.
That's what we have here on Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars. Now, speaking of transparency, we're not just going to talk fully electric cars on this show. We are also going to talk about, how does BYD describe it? It was in that article about Tesla. New energy vehicles, I think was how it was described, because BYD was announced as being the number one seller of new energy vehicles, which would include battery electric, fuel cell, hydrogen electric, and also hybrid and plug-in hybrid. Yep. I wonder if standard hybrid is included in that, because I don't think BYD would outsell Toyota's hybrid cars. So let's just call them plug-in hybrids. Yep. We have in the garage this week the Mazda CX60, which is a tall, very, very tall sides. That's what's striking about it to me. It feels very narrow and tall, but it's a plug-in hybrid. So here's what's fascinating about it from my first couple of days, and you'll have a look at it over the next couple of days, is it has a range calculator for petrol and electric combined. Yep. So when you run your electric down, because a plug-in hybrid is a great option for people who can't afford to go fully electric, but also for people who are just not keen on going fully electric. But it gives you that ability to the run to the shops. Most people, the run to work can be done in EV mode. So in most of these cars, and the Mazda is one of them, you can be in sport mode, but you can be in EV mode, which means you're fully electric until the battery's gone, and then you're back in petrol mode.
You kick in with the petrol.
Here's what's fascinating about the Mazda CX60. 480 Ks of petrol range. And 50 Ks of battery range. Okay. So actually, it was interesting because I picked it up almost empty, and then I filled it up and I went, only, I thought to myself, only 480 Ks of petrol range, because you think of people saying that petrol's the thing that's going to get you further, but actually, like my Cooper's got 511 Ks of range.
Yeah. So my car's got 580 or 90 certain Ks as well.
But it goes to your point earlier of range is a different beast when you can fill up every 5 minutes, right?
That's true.
So that's what you'll be taking home.
So will I make it home if I decide to make it home from your studio here in the country?
If you keep it in EV mode, you will make it home.
I'll just make it home? Just crawl?
Yes, you will make it.
It's not that far, is it? Is it less than 50 Ks away?
Now, the other car we've been driving are the MG4 models, and we've still got another one to go, but we've been sampling a couple of different variants. Yep.
And this is the first car made by MG that was designed from the ground up as an EV. Yep. So the previous model, the ZS EV, was basically their petrol vehicle that was converted with an electric motor. It looked great, drove great, but this has been an EV from the drawing board. Yeah. And it is a 5-door hatch. more compact car, but still, and various models and various prices as well, like starting as low as $38,990
or something. Yeah.
So that's I think this is attractive to that driver who can't afford to buy a Model 3 but wants to buy something that's reliable and an electric and fully electric.
I was pretty impressed with the size of it, to be honest, because
Yeah, it
I
is
think the
spacious,
BYD Dolphin, which is priced the same, is smaller.
Right.
So we haven't driven it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's a much smaller car.
I've had a few. I've driven, I think, 3 of these, and I'm not a little guy. I fit in this car really easily. A lot of headroom.
Yep.
And a lot of space around you too, because not having that drivetrain, a lot of that's the
opens
other
up
thing.
options.
Another thing drivers got to get used to, like the big hump in the middle of your car is gone when you got an EV. So there's a bit more room to do things, for cup holders and storage spaces and various things like that. So this makes use of that very well. I think it gives you a lot of space in the car.
And I think they're doing very well, because I've seen a few of them on the road. So I think their sales are really kicking on, because I think they've gone for volume. And they need, this is the thing Australia needs. You just need to supply the cars at a good price, like BYD's been doing. And that's got to be MG's target, right? Their target has to be to outsell the equivalent price car, and which is the Dolphin. I think they probably will. I haven't looked at let's discount the December numbers. In a few weeks, we'll look at the January numbers and see. But I reckon MG4 will probably outsell the Dolphin. Because I think on size it's a better value car, most likely.
And it gives you more options too. Like it's like the iPhone. You can buy an iPhone. You can buy the iPhone Pro, the iPhone Pro Max. There's various. Like if you want to get a car that's got more range, is fast, goes 0 to 100 faster. There's options all along the line here.
I didn't mention in the intro, for people that are very new to Two Blokes.
Yeah.
This is not our only podcast.
Yeah, we do a tech podcast.
Two Blokes Talking Tech. So that's why the references to so much technology. But
You may have heard of us. We've been around for a while.
Don't you know who he is? But I will say this, though. And again, this comes from a place of, I've always had a penchant for, European cars. Wow. You're a European car guy as well.
Oh, yeah, love them.
I do feel the quality of the MG, and it's not to my liking.
Okay.
Like I would, I probably couldn't own one, because I just feel like I can feel the plastics and I can feel the quality. Yeah. But I totally appreciate that. That's a price thing. You can't get I spent far more money on my little Cupra, which is a smaller car than the MG, because I wanted the materials. I wanted the fit and finish. And while the fit and finish of the MG is top class, it's the quality materials that are at that price point.
Well, it's again, I'm going to use a tech reference here. It's like you can either buy an entry-level smartphone, which doesn't quite have the same premium look and feel, or you can buy the top of the line, which is made of nicer materials.
But mate,
they do the same thing.
Take that analogy to the next level.
Yeah.
Value smartphones are getting so much better. And I think
that's what's happening.
A value car is happening the same way.
Absolutely right.
I think if it's been 10 years since, and this is a really critical thing about people buying a car, if it's been 10 years since you bought a new car, and your decision is to buy an MG4 because you want to go electric, you'll be like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Like, it has everything that you could want for. And that's where people get impressed with the MG, because they're selling to people not who used to own a Tesla or a BMW. They're selling to people who haven't had a new car for a little while.
And like the MG4, the X Power, so the goes 0 to 100 is 3.8 seconds. That's sort of Tesla material right there, Tesla speeds. But you're not paying anywhere near as much as a Tesla Model 3 or above. So I like the size of the car. I think it's not intimidating. You get a lot of big EVs, big cars, and people think, it's too big for me. This is a nice size. Like I remember my wife, she said, that's a nice little size car. My mother even said, I'd drive that.
Yeah.
So I think it's got a great appeal in terms of the styling. It's a nice looking car as well. And plenty of room. It's deceptively roomy inside as well. So don't think that this is a small car. There is plenty of room for 5 adults easily sit in this car.
Yeah, great little car, and well worth a look. If you're beginning your EV journey, absolutely take a crack at the MG4. I think that they can knock it out of the park if they can get supply. They've got to meet supply in Australia, and they'll be able to do very well.
Just to keep everyone comfortable as well, if you're used to having CarPlay, Android Auto, you're getting that as well. So in all these cars as well, so the tech is there, So I think there's a nice screen in the middle, like 10.5 inch screen, touch screen, little 7-inch cluster in front of the driver. You get more screens on this car than a Model 3.
Very good, and we'll bring you different thoughts and views on different cars each and every week here on Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars. All right, Stephen, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for downloading Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars, proudly brought to you by NRMA Insurance and Uniden Smart Dashcams. We thank them for their foundation support of Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars. Our goal is just to educate and inform and maybe a little bit of entertainment along the way.
We'll do our best there. But, yes, we've been at this a while, Trevor and I, if you don't know our other podcasts. So we're going to try our best every week to give you all the information you need if you are in the market for an EV or you're just curious. Yes, people want to know more.
You might, in fact, you might not be at all interested, but this might quirk your interest a little.
Tip you over.
It might be the thing that gives you some fodder for that next argument with someone who's a massive EV nerd.
Yeah,
who knows? But we're happy to be involved. And if you want to get in touch with us, just
you know where to find us.
Stephen Fennick, Trevor Long. You can find us online, and we'll be back next week with Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars.
This is Two Blokes Talking Electric Cars with Trevor Long and Stephen Fennick. Thanks to NRMA Insurance and Uniden.